From the Australian Army is Corporal Daniel Hodgson. We warmly welcome the family of Corporal Edward Alfred Harris, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We warmly welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family, visitors to the memorial, and students on behalf of Kingsway Christian College from Darch, Western Australia. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is God by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Please sit if you can do so. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the hearts of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Corporal Edward Alfred Harris. Edward Harris was born in 1890 in the Victorian town of Smeaton, the second eldest of 4 children born to Joseph and Elizabeth Harris. Edward Harris received his education at the local Smeaton State School before moving with his family to Western Australia, where he took up work as an ACER at Golden Ridge Mine, about 20 kilometres southeast of Kalgoorlie. In 1912, as construction of the Trans-Australian Railway began, he worked as a labourer at the railway workshops in Kalgoorlie. Edward Harris enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 28th of May 1915. Allocated to the 11th Battalion, in July he was reassigned to the 28th Battalion and promoted to Corporal. 2 months later, he embarked from Fremantle on board the troop ship Demosthenes. When Harris arrived in Egypt, he reverted to private before continuing training with his unit. In early 1916, the Australian Imperial Force was undergoing a period of reorganisation and expansion. Harris was transferred to the 51st Battalion and promoted to Lance Corporal in March 1916. The following month, he was promoted to Corporal before his battalion embarked for the Western Front. Corporal Harris arrived at Marseille in early June 1916. He and his comrades were given new equipment, including guns and gas masks, before moving into frontline trenches near Armentières. This was a relatively quiet area known as the nursery sector, where troops were introduced to life in the trenches, taking part in trench digging, wire repairing, and occasional raids on enemy lines. On the night of the 2nd of July 1916, Harris and some of his comrades were sent on a night patrol into no man's land to repair telephone wires. During this patrol, the enemy began to shell their position. The bombardment gave the novice soldiers little chance to return to their own lines. The following morning, casualties from the patrol amounted to 10 wounded and 10 killed. Among the dead was Corporal Edward Harris. He was buried near Flare Bay at Rue du Bois Military Cemetery. Beneath the inscription chosen by his grieving parents, his duty nobly done. He was 26 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Corporal Edward Alfred Harris, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many man lying out there at Pozier or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the director, staff and volunteers, we thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.